remember they were throwing paper in the air, and it was just this mayhem. I looked at him, I said, well, what's going on? And he said, well, you know, this is where they work, this is what they do. This is what happens every day.
I was just like thrilled. I was like, this is something I'd never seen before. You know, eyes got wide, and I was like,
everybody looked like they were in a riot, but there was some kind of order to it, and I just had to be part of it.
From that moment, I went literally back to my workplace and gave 2 weeks' notice without having a contact, without knowing how I was going to get on the floor. I just knew this was where I needed to be. I needed to be on the floor.
It was a live auction
40 on 2.
where the price of the commodity that you were trading was determined by who would pay the highest and who would sell it at the lowest price. When I would pay 5 and someone else would be willing to sell it at 5, we would have a match. We would acknowledge it, check it in the pit by saying, you know, I bought so many contracts from you at this price. And then we'd write it on our cards. We'd end up handing in our cards to our clerks, and the clerks would take it to our clearinghouse.
Yellow coats were designated for clerks. Other than that, all the different colors and different designs that you see down there was to make you stand out among the crowd. There were guys that had checkered jackets, red, white, and blue jackets. Anything that made you stand out in your area of the pit because you needed to be seen.
It's a misunderstanding that traders manipulate the price, that they're responsible for prices going up or down, and it's completely false. The supply and demand drives that. If there's too little supply and demand is high, well, prices are going up. If there's too much supply and demand is flat, prices are going down. The traders are just in the middle. All they're doing is catching something for a tenth of a penny and passing it on hundreds or thousands of times a day.
It's actually funny because when you first come down here, it's overwhelming. You can't figure anything out. And quickly you kind of discover that guy's a broker and he's an order filler and well, he's a big trader. All of a sudden people take on this personality so you get an idea of what's happening. Well, then you get some confidence and some arrogance and you decide that you're going to do this because you've been practicing and you think you can do it. Well, that's really when the learning starts. Because that's when you realize how incredibly complex and oftentimes scary and difficult and hard it is. These guys are professionals, every one of them.
Each and every day to go in there, trade your own rent money, not know whether you're going to make money or not, is terrifying to a lot of people. And I found it to be very, very scary.
I don't have any clients. I don't have any customers. And it dawns on you, nobody trusts you to do what you do except your family. And so in a lot of ways, I'm a hedge fund manager of my own family's worth, money. And they trust me not to fuck up.
The nature of trading is buying for one price and trying to sell it at a better price, period. You get in there, you make your first trade. You know, if you get whacked 10 times in a row, you pick yourself up by the bootstraps and you do it again.
We started at 7:20. By 7:30, we were dripping wet of sweat. Fortunes had been made and lost in the first 10 minutes.
Everybody had their ups and downs. I had bigger swings due to the size I traded.
It really depends on how much you put on. A five-tick day, a five move from 1 to 6, you can make millions of dollars depending on how much you put on. 100 lot, if you put 100 lot on in the euro dollars, it's worth $2,500, okay? There are guys that have 2,000 lots on. So, you know, you're talking about $200,000 a move, one tick. So it moves 5 ticks, you're up $1 million. If it goes 5 ticks against you, you're down $1 million.
If you traded a few contracts at a time, your risk was limited. If you went and took on the market and bought everything available, your risk was enormous. There were traders that went into the pit every day and risked a house.
You know, it wasn't unusual for guys to be making 20, 30 grand a day. It wasn't unusual for them to be losing 10, 20, 50,000 a day. And a lot of times you did that on one trade.
Whether people like to admit it or not, this is a form of gambling. How is it not? If you buy a stock, you're buying the idea that that stock's going up, right? I mean, that's what we do, and options are the same way. I mean, there is a gambling mentality to what we do down there. It's gambling to go down there every day because you are risking something.
But the rewards were phenomenal. If you took the biggest risk, you're either going to get crushed or you're going to be the happiest man on campus this afternoon.
I think somebody once said that floor trading offered blue-collar guys a chance to get in with the big boys. Commodity trading only has two purposes. One, to make a lot of money. Two, to manage a lot of money. And the faster you make big money, the faster you can do things with your life. And I think that's what it's allowed me to do. The numbers for successful guys are fleeting because you're only as good as your last trade. It's what you don't lose. It really is. I mean, there's been guys who've made more money than me, but for some reason or another, it was taken away. And so I think the more successful trader is the guy who can keep it for, you know, to the 10th, to the 9th race. The good traders know when to make money and leave. I tell you, I went to work every day. And when I wasn't at work, I was a miserable human being. I mean, without a doubt, I wanted to be back at work because I knew how much money you could make. And so when I go away on vacation, it didn't matter what I spent because I knew I was losing more not being at work, you know. And then somebody said, but you could be losing money. And I go, you know, you never think of it that way. Everything can be traced to being around the best traders in the free world. I would watch these guys trade in my pit, and I would say, if they're buying, I'm buying. If they're selling, I'm selling. But I also wanted to see, what was important to me, how they handle a loser. It's not what you make, it's what you don't lose that determines how much money you have at the end of the year. And I would watch these bigger traders, and I go, how do they handle the stress of having a losing trade? What do they do when they had a losing trade? I literally just learned by watching the most successful people in the world.
Certainly the numbers that come out of these places, how much money people make, can be staggering.
Yeah, my assistant, who's pretty junior, she makes a little bit more than my brother does. My brother's a cardiac anesthesiologist. My assistant is 3 years out of college and likes to drink beer.
You had a bunch of young kids making more money than they knew what to do with, and they found things to do with it.
Every time you make money trading, it's like applause, but only you hear it, because everybody else in that pit is rooting against you. You're competing next to folks for every single trade, and the fastest person, whoever says, buy them, whoever says that first gets the trade. And you know your neighbor sitting right here next to you needs them as bad as you need them. He needs to make his mortgage payment. He needs to put the kids through school, but you're going to bury him. You'll tear out his liver because you heard that broker say sold, and that guy is right there next to you. He needs them, and you just said, buy him. And he said, how many did I get? And you're like, none.
Good friend of mine said long ago, he said, if you want a friend, get a dog. You don't have friends in the pit.
Most of the people could set aside their differences outside of business. But sometimes when the almighty dollar gets involved, people don't care.
I've seen guys yell and scream and say nasty things, ungodly things. That's what helps them trade. Yeah, and they probably don't like you anyway. True, that's true. They probably truly don't like you. There's no doubt about that. You know, if they had a chance to, they would hit you if they could.
There will be fights in the pits. You know, no one's proud of that, but you will see people go at it.
There was a lot of fighting over who did the trade. Did you do it, or did the guy next to you trade with me? One guy thought that he made the market, someone took his trade, finally the guy lost his cool, ran over, and bit the guy in the nose.
I was just under 6'3" and weighed 255 pounds, and I had little guys that would come up and berate me. Guys would literally look at you and say, "You're a fucking idiot. I can't believe you do that fucking trade." You'd look at them and go, "You gotta be kidding me. First of all, it was a good trade. That's why you're mad. And second of all, shut up."
And I think the guys that want to strangle you after every trade, you kind of enjoy that. And you want to do that again and again, because that means you're doing something right.
That was the famous line on Chicago was, "You want to meet out by the horse," because we have this great big horse statue that sits out front, and that's where everybody would, if they would actually go down, they would have a group of hundreds following them.
And it just feels almost like sometimes you can't get out.
Say you're down like $12,000. You're like, I should walk out of here. I should realize, you know, I'm past my limit and walk out of here. What's the next thing you do? You're like, well, what the hell? Just, you know, I'll buy a couple more. And then wham, it goes again. And the thing that goes through your head is like, all right, how much am I losing right now? There goes a car, there goes a house. It's like someone hitting you in the balls, never ending. It's like wham, wham. It's like, okay.
Nobody can get you down the amount of money that you're going to be down the day. Only you can do that. And it's funny when you see something happen to somebody else.
It's very, very public, and so those guys that saw you lose money will probably, you know, twist that knife in your side and say, "Boy, they looked pretty good an hour ago, didn't they, Pete?"
It's a vindictive crowd. It really is.
There's a joke that we always used to say when you go on the floor, you've got the scan card, and you've got to scan your way in. Well, if you scan it and you look down and the light's red, the guy behind you is like, "Ooh, bad day yesterday," or "How you looking there?" You're like, "Oh, no, it's good." You're like, "Come on. Come on." And it goes green. You're like, "All right, yes. They're alive for another day."
There were a lot of times when the markets got very volatile that you wouldn't see a guy the next day. And you knew he lost what he could lose.
The computers really changed the dynamics. You don't need market makers anymore. Yes, they're in the pit, but they're not necessarily making a living the same way they did maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and definitely not the same living they made, 20 years ago. Okay, what do we see here? See, here's the depressing part of a computer. They are the thinnest of the thin in terms of people. Trillions of dollars change hands every day on the online platform and Globex, big numbers. But the pits, no. Why? Because there's huge bids, there's huge offers, there's no space in between them. Easy for the computers to match up. When there's a bid of 3 and an offer of 4 and it's 20 zillion up, you really don't need a lot of human outcry to add liquidity, which is what humans do best.
You got to realize 95% now of all global markets are electronic. I don't think you can find any pits overseas. The grains, coffee, cocoa, sugar, the softs, everything's switched over to electronic.
You'll have algorithms that says, I want to buy them at this level, sell them at this level. If I'm taking a profit, I want it to be this much. If I'm taking a loss, I want it to be this much. And then the computers will just run, pumping in bids and offers all day against other computers.
Now what you have is only program traders. These people, if you don't write a program and you don't have it set to kick in at different intervals, you can't trade it. I have not figured it out. Consequently, I've gone into the cattle pit. 2 years I've been standing in the cattle pit. We still have paper. They're trying to infect us with the virus. The customers, however, like talking to their brokers, and it's the last of the open outcry.
I think one of the biggest reasons some of those cowboys made so much money was that they were excellent at reading people. You're picking up the clues of the brokers' faces. You're listening to the volume. You're hearing the noise. You can determine the fear level in the marketplace. But when it changes to the screen, you just see prices, you see numbers flashing back and forth.
This is the life and the times of an upstairs trader. We just sit here with no exercise. You have to understand that I was in this incredibly stimulating environment of being on the trading floors for a number of years. I think there were 4 women on the entire exchange floor, you know, and it's like you're down there sink or swim, you know, you're in there with a pit of guys, you know, all sweaty armpits and everything, and I'm just trying to open my mouth to buy or sell a 1-lot. That's how I started.
That's our exercise for the day.
So to then go to an upstairs office where you have none of that, no sensory input whatsoever, and it's a learning curve too, because it's like an old dog trying to learn new tricks here, you know? You make your share of mistakes and, oh, I didn't mean to hit buy, I meant to hit sell, you know? Little kids grow up with these computer games and just take it for granted. It takes a while to learn. If you're trading multiple markets, it's impossible to monitor all this stuff technically for more than, say, 1 or 2 markets at a time. My eyes are right there. This is all for show and tell. If you think you can humanly process all this gobbledygook, you're crazy. It's like right there. I'm just looking at the last price. So 99% of the time, I'm just watching those go from plus 25 to plus 30 to plus 25. And that's about it.
Would you rather watch a football game on your HD with a camera giving you all the action, that's open outcry, or would you rather have that camera just focused on the scoreboard the entire game? That's electronic trading. That's the way they look at it. And there's something to be said for that.